What's up, you guys? This is Rob from Kdrives Plays, and today on #confirmed, we are jumping into Devstream 113 to take a look at all of the post-TennoCon information that we can possibly dig into. Now, suffice it to say, there is a lot to talk about, so let's just go ahead and jump on in. So straight out of the gate, for you guys who are excited about the Switch, me, not so much because of the fact that I'm not a big controller boy, but they are looking into PC to Switch migration for a limited time at launch. Now, that isn't a 100% guarantee. They still do have to discuss this with Steam and a whole bunch of other companies they're working with. You know, corporations that they're kind of linked to are going to be the stopgap as to whether they can do it, but it is something that they are looking to do. So if you guys want to make a clone of your account to a potential Switch console, you can go ahead and cross your fingers that that will be on its way. I know that DE is definitely trying for that, so get excited. Moving along, speaking of excitement, we are going to be taking a look at 2 deluxe skins. Now, first out of the gate, they went ahead and showed us the Vauban Deluxe skin, and this thing looks absolutely glorious. When we're talking about steampunk, we're meaning like literal steampunk now. Like, there is steam coming out of this skin, and it's looking absolutely dope. I think that maybe we've seen it a little bit with the mag, but there is definitely a lot of like mechanization being added into skins. She had it a little bit with like her joint sockets where like the gears were spinning and whatnot, and there was some hovering and pulsing. This time we've got these pistons that fire off and steam that comes out of it. It's absolutely amazing. Now, they didn't say exactly when this would be coming in, but they did mention another date with the next skin that we're looking at. I don't know if the 2 dates are linked, so, you know, don't hold me accountable. However, the Nidus Deluxe was finally shown in almost all of its glory. Now, this thing looks amazing until you look closely, because that's when it starts to bother me a little bit. At first I was like, oh, it looks really, really good. Then I really realized that there was like eyeballs in the shoulders. I'm like, eyeballs in the shoulders? I don't know how I feel about that. Then they also pointed out that the arms crossed over the body. If you look closely, you can see the bones in the arms. And I'm like, you were really cool a minute ago, and now you're kind of freaking me out, and I don't know how I feel about that. Regardless, as long as you don't look too close, and if you are not squeamish, this skin is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm loving the colors on it already. Can't wait to get my hands on it to fashion frame it. Maybe we can make them look a little less like eyes. But they did say that the Nidus Deluxe would be shipping next week. I'm not sure if that date also applies to the Vauban Deluxe, because they only spoke about dates during the Nidus portion, but suffice to say, it's absolutely gorgeous, and of course he is going to be coming with the Helmuth Charger skin. They did specifically say Helmuth Charger, so it's not going to necessarily be for Kubros, it's just going to be for our, you know, sticky-tongued friends that drag enemies to them. So I'm going to have to drag out my Helmuth Charger for another couple runs. Now, since we're talking about release dates, I did want to go ahead and give you guys a little bit of a heads up. They are looking to launch Fortuna late summer, early fall. They said it was very, very similar to the launch of Plains of Eidolon, which actually came out in October. However, I'm just gonna be real with you. This is Rob putting 2 and 2 together, okay? Late summer, early fall. That's like September-ish, right? Right, that's like September-ish. You know what else drops in September? Oh yeah, that would be Destiny 2. I believe one of their updates is coming on that day. So, I wouldn't be surprised if DE is trying to launch it right around then, or a little bit after, to catch any of the fallout that Destiny is like, because they're shedding players, and DE's just like, oh, you want to give us your players? Okay, we will have Venus out in a few days, thank you, we will take all your players. So that's what I'm thinking is the plan, and I believe that theirs drops like September 6th or something along the line, so don't be surprised if Fortuna is hot on those tails. Moving along, they did say that Railjack is going to be a separate launch and will be coming a bit later. So don't think that they're necessarily tied into each other, because they did reveal a couple other things about Railjack that kind of disengages it from Venus. There's going to be some Venus interplay, but there's also going to be other things along that as well. And as for the new War Quest, they're like, bitch, we don't know. We gonna have to see. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see that in 2018 and saw that very, very similarly to what we saw this year with the sacrifice. So don't plan on that anytime soon. You might want to push that into next year. Now, since Fortuna is going to be the first one of these updates that we will see, let's go ahead and jump into some interesting things that they noted about it. So one of the things that I know a lot of us had questions about was, where's Anko? Do he got some other friends that are going to be here as well? And yes, they did confirm that the Quills will be in Fortuna in their own secret room as well. Now, they did say that there were going to be skins of the amps. I don't know if that means that it's going to be different amps or if they're just going to be skins that look different, because that's the only way that they kind of referred to it. They did not say new amps. They said skins for amps, or they said, you know, corpus looking amps, something along those lines, but they definitely did not specifically say that we would get brand new ones, because those are going to be a little bit different. Next thing that they actually wanted to touch on is when they jumped over to the MOA pets, because people were very curious about Pet 2.0. Now, they did say, they didn't give us a date on Pet 2.0. They did say that the MOA pets are just going to be an addition for now, but if they are going to launch Pet 2.0, it's going to trickle out slowly. So it's not just going to be like, bam, here are all of your new pets. It's going to be like, alright, so here's this grouping of pets this week. In 2 weeks, we'll get you the next grouping of pets, and so on and so forth. So, just for those of you guys who are curious about Pet 2.0 and how the new MOAs are going to play into that, do know it's going to come probably later than sooner. Next interesting thing that I wanted to go ahead and touch on is the fact that we are going to have something called the Vent Kids. And supposedly it's going to be another faction within Fortuna. This one is really, really puzzling to me, but I can't wait to see it. It's their own faction, and they'll be linked to Kdrives. So, you know, the snowboard things that we've been taking a look at this entire time, that is going to be something from them. I think that maybe their parts will be earned and whatnot. The interesting thing about them is I think that they stated that drives were, like, doing tricks with your Kdrives were gonna earn you rep. Like, a lot of the terrain that they were mentioning is, oh, you can grind off of that, yada, 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 so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, interesting. They are trying to mobilize these things to work off of water. However, during the demo, that didn't quite work out so well. Now, they did say that the Kdrive would not be charge-based, and that they are going to move Arcwing away from being charge-based on the Fortuna and potentially the planes as well. So I thought that that was very, very interesting. They also did say that the Kdrives would be customizable. They would have their own mods, and you'd be able to do different tricks with them. And I think that might be in like the modding modules that they'll have. And it's also going to have its own fashion. So needless to say, I'm excited. I mean, really, to be honest with you, Kdrives, when I looked at it at TennoCon, I was like, okay, this is interesting, this looks fun. But it wasn't necessarily something that I went nuts over until I saw it today. So if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely watch the dev stream, because there was something about Kdrives on today's stream that looked really, really fucking fun. So definitely check that out. I'll leave a link in the description box below. The next thing that I wanted to go ahead and mention, since we're on, you know, the talks about traveling out in the Orb Vallis, is a corpus alert level. This is something that they actually went ahead and touched on, and they said, you know, the higher the level, of course, enemies are going to come after you. This reminds me of like Grand Theft Auto, when you got like the little stars, and you're like, oh, I'm on 6 stars, they're going to come to get me now. So they were making mention about the fact that, you know, oh, if you want to do a stealthier mission, you want to make sure that the alert level is like lower, yada, yada, yada. They said that this is going to be an overarching system, but they weren't really clear as to where else it would tie in. It could tie into the planes for all we know, but so far the first look that we've seen at it is on the Orb Vallis on Venus. So, who knows? Alert system coming to Warframe? Maybe. The other thing that I wanted to mention, since we are on the Orb Vallis, is the Orb Mother. Okay, so as you guys know, the Plains of Eidolons have the Eidolons. We've got our Terralists, our Guanchalists, our Hydralisks, all of that. The first thing that we see on the Orb Vallis are these massive Orb Mothers, these goddamn giant spiders. One of the things that they mentioned, which I thought was really, really interesting, is that boss battles will not depend on timing. So it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be day and night or anything like that. But each Orb Mother will be summoned to defend the base due to special circumstances that you can trigger. So I think that there's going to be one active, and then if you want to go out and, you know, get more of those Orb Mothers, you're actually going to have to trigger those to spawn in different ways. So I think that this is really, really interesting. The other things that I really wanted to highlight, and I'm like, DE, please do this right, please. I've been waiting. I just need you to tell me that you're doing something for veterans, and I feel like this might be a clue. But they did say that newer players aren't just going to be able to fight an Orb Mother, that there's going to be some investment that they need to make in order to get there. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be something with the Vent Kids, or it's going to be something with the Orb Vallis faction of the Quills. We'll see exactly what happens, but I'm so glad that DE is really paying attention to the fact that, you know, you shouldn't be able to just walk into content day one and say, oh, I can have everything. There's some things that should be earned by playing over time. So I can't wait to see how this does. But the one thing that I did want to point out, which was really interesting, is that as they kind of hovered over the Orb Mother, each leg did have its own, like, HP tab. Kind of like you see with the hyena and whatnot, like left leg, right leg, back leg, all that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting feat. I can't wait to see exactly how that all plays into the combat, even though realistically they said that, you know, it's not ready. But at least they're being honest. Now, something else that they're playing around with is Vlad, aka the Revenant, or Revenant, aka Vlad, however you want to look at it, which is going to be the next Warframe that they will be launching. So they've been playing around with his kit a little bit, and they've got some interesting things in there. So the first ability has had a couple tweaks to it. It no longer needs to be built up. It's just an instant charm, and that enemy damages another enemy, they'll charm another enemy. So it's just kind of like this big chain link of getting more and more enemies to kind of like follow your side. They did say that they were going to try to max this out at 20 enemies fighting for you at once, which I think is insanely, insanely powerful. Secondly, you know, they've got the sentient armor, which is basically the same as last time. Enemies that hit you will get stunned, and you'll be able to get free charms off on them. The next one is, of course, the third, the mist form, where you can pass through enemies and regain some of your health, yada yada yada. And then last but not least is the most interesting thing, is they have changed his ultimate to be more laser based, and this is absolutely nuts. It reminds me a lot of like the Battlelists and the Conquilists, where they kind of like spin around, but they've also got the big Eidolon lasers like shooting from his hand. So that is going to be super duper cool. Really, it's gonna depend on how much damage it does, because it might be great for kind of like the bite-sized content we have here in Warframe, but you know, who knows how effective that's going to be later on. So hopefully they have a scaling mechanic that goes along with that. But all hail laser fingers, I'm all about it. So last but not least, we're going to talk about Railjack. God, there's just so many things to touch on, and I feel like I'm talking about a minute. But Railjack is, number one, it's fucking gorgeous. But number two, they mentioned that Railjack wasn't just what we were seeing there, that they were actually working on several different missions. There's going to be several different capital ships, and not only that, but they're going to have you do other things than destroy a big ship. They're going to have you explore derelict ships, just go around and experience Railjack in a bunch of different ways, which I'm excited about, because, you know what, it doesn't just tether it just to Venus. If they're talking about derelict ships, I mean, maybe it'll take us to the derelict. Maybe we'll go ahead and see them somewhere, what do you call this? We'll see them somewhere in the void. Like, it's just really exciting to see where they could potentially go with this, and maybe take us up against other factions like the Grineer, and so on and so forth. So I can't wait to see that. But they did give us a couple new details. Number one, the Railjack dock will be built in your clan. So if your clans ain't ready, make sure your clans get ready, because that dock is going to be where they're going to be built. So the clan builds the dock, and then I believe you build your own Railjack, something along those lines. But each individual will have their own Railjack. Now, in addition to that, one of the things that they did want to point out is that solo players can install modules in that will assist them in fighting enemies. So even though they are encouraging players to do Railjack as group missions, for you solo players out there, you will be able to equip modules that'll target enemies for you and will basically have Ortis fighting at your side, which is, I'm gonna be honest, that's kind of cool. If he gets more voice lines for that, I might just equip some of the solo modules. Now, speaking of these modules, they did kind of point out that Railjacks will have custom modules, and they said that it would be akin to the modding systems that we have in the game. So whether it's just going to be a mod screen, or whether you're actually going to like run around in the ship installing modules, that's going to be a thing. So hopefully we'll be able to really like customize the play of each Railjack. I mean, there could be Railjacks that are maybe like more tanky, but a little bit slower. Maybe there are Railjacks that are a little bit faster. I was like secretly saying, like, could I have a Railjack that goes invisible and, you know, maybe disarms enemies, and maybe even could, you know, like switch teleport with other enemies so we could get ahead a little bit fast. You know, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. Maybe a Railjack that makes decoys. I mean, that would be perfect. That would be a perfect Railjack. But that is definitely something that I'm looking forward to, especially the fact that it is going to take us into different directions and not just the single solo direction that we've seen so far. Finally, the last thing that I do want to touch on real quick, and this is like, I'm just slapping this in at the last minute because I literally just remember this, but for the Prime packs that we are getting next month, not next month, in like a week, the unvaults, those ones are actually going to be available in the voids. So kind of like how they compartmentalized things before, where it was you'd be able to get, you know, X, Y, and Z from the planes. This time you'll get X, Y, and Z, but this part from the void. So it'll be kind of like an old back in the days kind of feeling. Regardless, that does do it for me for now. There are so many more things that we can jump into more in depth with. If you guys are at all curious about those things, go ahead and toss anything in the comments below that you would like me to cover a little bit more in depth, because we just kind of washed over things this time around. But that does it for me for now. So as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.